Hello and welcome to this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network, and as we approach the end of summer, we are joined by Kimberly Wilson. I want to make sure I get the title right. You are the Director of the UMASS Dartmouth Labor Education Center.
That is correct.
That's a lot on the business card, by the way.
It is. It definitely is.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
End of summer, obviously, Labor Day is in the mix, so I wanted to bring you in to talk about sort of where labor stands today, and it's certainly different than it was a couple of years ago, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
But first, tell us, I mean, with being the director of the center, what is the center for people who don't know, and what is it that you do?
Well, thanks for asking. The center has been around for well over 30 years, and we're a part of the community, but we're also part of UMass Dartmouth. So we work with students in terms of providing internships that are meaningful and that are tailored to student interests, but are also in the community and around social and economic justice and worker rights. That is one part of what we do. Another big part of what we do is the umbrella of the Labor Education Center holds the Workers Education Program, which is located in the Star Store. We have over 230 students learning English, as well as preparing for their GED. And so that's a really important connection of the university to the community through providing free classes for students to be able to be more active in the community.
It's amazing to see how far the center has come over the years. I remember when it first came up, I was working in radio when it first was developed, and now it's changed a lot. And what it's doing is changed too, the mission.
Yeah, it has. We are committed to bringing the resources of the university to the community, and we want to improve people's day-to-day lives, especially in the workplace. That's part of what we do, is to support labor unions in the area. And we do that, again, through work with students to be able to learn more about the labor movement, learn more about issues in the workplace, and to connect to building a stronger community and improving people's work lives.
And it's interesting too, because the university is so important to the community, because for many students, they are the first of their family to go to school, and they're going to UMass Dartmouth. And when you're talking about immigrants and people who've come over, I mean, this is huge for them, and the programs that you provide.
Yeah, well, thank you. We have at UMass Dartmouth about half of students are first generation,
right,
including our chancellor. And we're inching up towards 50% of students of color. And so the university has changed. I've actually been working for UMass for almost 25 years, and I've seen significant changes during that time. And I'm proud to be a part of where we are with our commitment to the community and to our students.
Well, just the campus itself. I mean, the campus is built up unbelievably over the past few years. And then you've got locations, as you said, you got the Star Store, you're in Fall River has a campus, satellite campus.
That's actually faded away, but the impression of the footprint of being at the Star Store is very important. And the whole we were talking about Mark Montigny and his work over 20 years ago to get that building together, funded. And now, just in the past month, I believe, or 2 months, to have the state take back the Star Store. It's so exciting for downtown. And actually, the Workers Education Program that offers the English classes and prep for GEDs is in the Star Store.
Do you find a lot of folks going for their GEDs?
Yeah, we actually have many more students taking English classes, but that's a program that is very important to draw people to participate and to be able to have better jobs and to participate more in the community. But always looking for more students, particularly for that program. So keep that in mind.
Do you find that you have to, I don't want to say sell, but do you have to make a pitch to people to show that the GED is going to make a difference financially in their lives? Do you still have to make that pitch?
I think people are pretty aware just from being in the workforce, but I think reinforcement is important as we do recruitment. We really don't need to do recruitment for the ESOL program because there's such a need.
Yeah.
But the adult basic ed takes a little bit more work. And we've got great statistics and materials about how your life has changed by getting a GED.
And then subsequently, obviously, the GED, and then trying to go on to further, whether it's even community college or then going to UMass Dartmouth. I mean, the degrees matter. Even the diploma matters to get ahead.
Yeah, very much.
To support your family down the road.
Yeah.
Wanted to talk, obviously, about as we come up here. Again, it's the end of summer, unofficially.
Unofficially, that's right.
But labor, the workforce, and the movement, which I know you are focused on too, it's all kind of changed over the last couple of years. Kind of set where we are right now when you look at where, quote, labor is right now. Great.
This is a very exciting moment. This Labor Day is very important, and heading into the fall and into 2023, there's been tremendous changes, and I believe that the COVID crisis has led to changes in how people see work, how they see themselves in the workplace, what opportunities are. Right now, in terms of the labor movement and unions, things have never looked better. The excitement from young people and people of color, looking at everything in the media about the Starbucks organizing, and there's actually more than 200 Starbucks that have voted union, which is something I never thought I would see. And even more than that, Amazon, the victory in the warehouse in Staten Island is just unprecedented, and really showing the positive movement forward of labor. And the numbers of people who support unions has never been higher in my lifetime.
Is it, as I look back, I mean, it just seems that unions, I don't want to say they're not important, but their impacts over the years hasn't been as great or has been diminished over the years.
That's true. We've had a tough time. You look back at the 80s, you look at the governmental institutional work against unions starting particularly from Reagan and before, but the changes that came through his presidency and moving forward. But also you look at deindustrialization, which we've seen so clearly in this area, all the factories closing. And part of that is, chasing cheaper labor, but it's also automation. That's been...
It's a lot of automation when you really think about it.
And I think people don't think about that when they think about all the lost jobs in manufacturing, that automation was a big part of that. But in the bigger picture, the structure of the economy with the way that regulations around labor has come into place has been devastating, as well as all these other factors. And so the rise of organizing in the public sector has been critical. When you look at numbers in the economy of unionized jobs, it's the public sector that has had the most gains. And the private sector...
And they get criticized probably the most too.
Especially teachers.
Yep.
And I think that is...
It's really the big ones too when you think about it. The police, the fire, the teachers, those are the ones that certainly get the criticism for what they're looking for.
And those are the areas that are fighting for more services, fighting for the community to have better fire and police. And when you look at the impact, what I believe about the public sector and institutions like UMass Dartmouth, that is what makes life better for working people. Having those kind of institutions that are supported by public employees, I think, is critical to where we are, the way people are able to live and thrive because of the public sector.
You talked automation, and when you really think about it, I mean, we're talking factories, but even in the smaller scale, you see it when you go to your local store, and then you have the self-checkouts, and the banking, you have those ATMs. I mean, previously those were jobs.
That's right. And I think we see it growing in grocery stores. So workers in grocery stores that are union are represented by the United Food and Commercial Workers. And they've been doing a lot of education around the drawbacks of automation and particularly self-checkout and how that impacts good union jobs. And these things are not all for the positive, right? People think that some changes that are supposed to make things more efficient isn't always the case.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think part of it, though, is just customer service is so important. I mean, if you spend a little more, you'll make a little more, too, in that regards, where if you're dealing with a person as a customer, well, no matter what the industry is, you're going to have a relationship with that person and you're going to feel you're getting better service.
Right.
Versus if you're just dealing with a machine and something happens, there's no personal experience or anything.
Absolutely. I think that the alienation that people face in their day-to-day lives by not having that human connection is a real factor when you look at the community. And I think that kind of personal touch is absolutely critical.
I mean, self-serve gas stations have been around forever now. And I remember growing up, you'd always go and whoever was pumping gas for you also happened to be a mechanic, and they could check your oil, check your car to make sure it was running decent with a quick once-over, if you will. But obviously that doesn't exist anymore. Right. And if you do get it, it costs more. So we were talking to, obviously, with COVID, and this is obviously you've had to deal with this in school, but obviously a lot of the jobs now are not in person. And how do you think that has affected labor? Good, bad? Because we're talking about the personal touch and,
Yeah, it's interesting because people who are able to work at home, and I think it's important to remember that large pieces of the economy have jobs where you're not able to work from home.
Right.
But professionals and others that have that kind of work have seen tremendous advantages, which I think we've probably all heard from through the media, especially when you look at the impact on the environment with commuting and quality of life.
But was productivity up? And you don't really see reports on that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely have seen some research about that. Okay. And that, in fact, when people don't have the distractions and are working at home, it can be very advantageous to the employer. I think that the hybrid model is what people are finding that works the best. If you read research about like what's happening with businesses in Boston, it seems like so many employers are coming around that the hybrid is what works the most for employees and for the employer. And we're seeing that at UMass Dartmouth. So for people whose jobs can be done somewhat from home, we do have a hybrid model that's being tested out for people to work at home for up to 2 days a week. And so the connection to people seeing each other, meeting in person, which I think has established how important that is, to have department meetings and just the kind of conversations that help jobs be more fulfilling and more effective, that's very important. But also seeing how work from home did work. And we have great examples of how that played out over the pandemic. So how can we use what we learned during that time to have better jobs coming out of it?
It's interesting on two fronts, because I know that talking about jobs and being at work, people don't really think about it, but there is a social aspect to work.
Absolutely.
As you said, meeting with your colleagues. I know when we've had the state reps come in and do the show once a month, they've said that obviously the State House wasn't open and their staffs are kind of scattered. And I remember a couple of state reps saying they hadn't even met some of the new people that were elected last year because they haven't been in the State House. And but there's work that can be done when, staffs are talking to each other face to face, and certainly when representatives are working face to face. So And there is that social aspect, like you said, of just going out and getting a beer after work that you don't have.
Building community, it's an important way that happens and gives people meaning and satisfaction in their lives by those relationships.
The other thing too, and you and I were talking about this on the phone, from your standpoint, it must be interesting, the dynamic, because obviously during the pandemic, a lot of the classes were virtual. And I've got 2 kids that are still in school, and they want to be in school.
Right.
And how is that dynamic playing out? I'm not specifically saying UMass Dartmouth, but do you find that teachers, professors, they want to be in the classroom with the kids to talk one-on-one with them?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the position. So I'm a member of the professional unit of the faculty union, and the thinking about it is we need to be on campus for the sense of community, and that there needs to be some flexibility in terms of some work from home, but that we need to be there to really build community for students to have great college experiences and to have that community. And
it's not just about the classes too,
exactly,
because you've got the kids that they want to go to the football games, or they want to go to the events that are at the campus. I mean, there's especially with college, in high school too, there's so much of a community that if you're just remote, you're not getting that.
And it's so important, and it's such a privilege for people who are able to get into higher ed. And I just think of the transformation I've seen when I came to UMass Dartmouth almost 25 years ago. It was pretty much still a commuter school at that time.
Yeah.
And we've talked about, past leaders of UMass, and Jean McCormick and the work that she did to really have a campus, to have a place where students would stay over the weekend. And there's just been such great gains in that. And with all the new dorms, there's been tremendous construction over the past couple of years, and the new dining hall and the dorms around it that are now just outside of Ring Road are beautiful. They're actually inside Ring Road, but the new construction.
Right. You've talked about how people, generations, I mean, they like the ability to work from home. Is it because you've seen both, is it I don't want to say a battle, but do you have to convince folks that no, you can't be all or nothing? I mean, there is a value to being on campus or at a job or something like that.
Right. And some people just want to be on site all the time as well. It's one of those things where it has a lot to do with people's personalities and the way they work. But getting back to the hybrid model, I think that is what has worked so well for people coming out of, we're at this point where people really are going back to the offices in bigger numbers. And I think, learning from the parts that had really worked over the pandemic and giving people that opportunity to do other things, just to be at home and work at their own pace, I think has been so advantageous for so many people. But it can't all be at home, and it, going back to having everything in person isn't heading into everyone being happy, being in their best work lives by being on site all the time. Again, for those who have the privilege of being able to do some work from home.
And there are obviously a number of jobs where you just don't have that option.
Right, yeah.
Where are the jobs? I mean, as you've said, there's so many openings, and even if everybody applied, there'd still be. So what are those, what sort of fields can they get jobs? Where are we leaning to?
I think healthcare. I was looking at on the UMass Hire website that you can connect to all different kinds of labor market research. And I was just taking a look at that last night in preparation for today. And there's so much to read about where the jobs are, where the especially looking at wages. And so nursing is right up there as a key area. Technology, maybe not as much in this area as parts of Boston, but there are jobs in that field in this area, especially medical devices.
And you would think that technology, from what you were saying with automation, that would be a huge market, if you will, to jump into.
Yeah, that's definitely anything related to software development, jobs in the whole IT sector are growing, and for that very reason.
I'm amazed too that my wife is a principal. How many openings there are, teacher openings? There's a lot.
Another great field to get into.
Excuse me.
Yeah, another good field.
What are the kids interested in? What are the students interested in?
Well, it's, I think, depending on ages and how close people are to actually being in the workforce. I know that students, like all people, look for where are the highest wages as part of it, but more importantly, where is their job satisfaction? Someone's looking at their work life for the rest of their lives, and what kind of work do you want to be doing? So I think that there's a lot of social services that people are interested in going into that kind of work as well. Of course, I'm a strong believer in jobs connected to social change. And with the rising of the labor movement, there's more and more work in unions that we're seeing that sector grow as well. But healthcare, I think, particularly with how wages are just raising, and it's not going away, right? We were talking about too with the aging baby boomers, right, that there's just, there's no limit to how much work that there is in that field.
You were talking unions too, but it's interesting because does it have to do with wages? For example, I mentioned teachers. Police departments are looking for candidates. Obviously, there's a physical aspect to that too that you've got to pass, but they have openings. I don't know about fire. I know the city has openings for different jobs around, but they're having a tough time getting applicants. Obviously, I would assume that money is part of that, but why, in a sense, are people reluctant to sort of jump into those jobs, which are union jobs?
Yeah, I think that, there's so many factors at play when you look at that. I think you can't underestimate wages as a driver for the kind of work people choose, but dignity and respect at work. You can't underestimate how much people do value that in their jobs. And that has to do with employers, but it also has to do with industries. When you look at, for instance, home health aides, people want to be valued and respected for the work that they do. And I believe unions played a really important role in developing more of that, for sure. But when people are choosing what fields they want to go into, I think it's the quality of the work life is a very big part of it.
Do you talk to, obviously they're not just kids, they're adults you're dealing with too. Is there a part where you look and say, it's not all about the money? Do they grasp that though? Do people, yeah. I mean, because obviously you want to make as much as you can, but that aside, which you do want to make, it's not all about the money.
That's right. When you look at in your life, the percentage of the hours that you're alive, that you're at work, I think young people, I think it's a growing thing as they get older. But where do you want to spend your life? Where do you want to have the majority of your waking hours? What do you want to be doing, and how do you want to be treated for that, amount of time that you're spending in your life at work? In terms of being valued, finding the work meaningful, being fairly paid with benefits that are going to improve your quality of life. I think that there are a lot of factors, but I do think the more that students and people consider what the rest of their life is going to look like based on the type of work that they want to do, that those decisions and considerations have to come to play.
Got a couple minutes left. Where do you see things, and again, put your crystal ball in front of you here, and like the next 3 to 5 years, do you see things still changing? Do you see unions still growing? It's not long-term future, but just the immediate future. How are things trending right now?
I think that the numbers of workplaces that are organizing has just improved tremendously, the numbers, and that will continue. And I think that that's because of young people having the percentage of support for unions It's just tremendous, those numbers. And so I believe that will continue.
Do you feel, though, that there'll still be, because we were talking about, we need to get kids to school, kids need to get these jobs and to apply for these jobs. Do you feel as though there's going to be a particular market for kids and that some are going to be suffering? Like, where do you see that going?
In terms of fields?
Yeah.
People? Well, I do really believe that healthcare is the field where there will be the most jobs, as well as jobs in technology. So I think that students really need to think about, what type of work do they want to be doing in those fields, and wages, when you're looking at what opportunities you're going to have in life and opportunities for your kids. Wages are very important.
Do you talk because obviously, but does this start like when you're a teenager, as a high school kid? Is that something you should be at least thinking about?
I think so. Yeah, because everyone works. Unless you're independently wealthy, everyone is going to have a job.
Because the 17 and 18-year-olds have no idea. Many of them have no idea what they want to do. But at the very least, I would think that they should start even getting a part-time job, even if it's not something they want to do. They need to start to work.
And so many have to. I have to tell you, working at UMass Dartmouth, the work-study students in our office that have more than one job, it's so surprising to see how much students are working, and students who are actually supporting their families as students by working multiple jobs. And that does lead into the student loan discussion in terms of people not having any choice, having to work. But I think you're talking more about pre-high school too, and the value of experience. That's what, I think that in that case, it's important for people to have workplace experiences to try to think about what they want to do. But what I was just referencing was college students who have no choice.
Well, it's interesting too, because the jobs that we had as kids, paper routes or a lot of restaurant jobs now kids don't have because they're taken by older people. So it seems a number of jobs that used to have be good for kids aren't there anymore either. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's just what it seems to be right now.
Yeah, I think at this moment, with all the openings in low-wage jobs, it's that young people have more of a choice, and the choices being made by so many people are what are the better-paying jobs. Like, if you want to fill jobs that are open, offer higher wages, offer better conditions if you want to fill those positions. And I think that with the aging of the workforce, with the Great Resignation, with all of the retirements that have been happening sooner because of the pandemic, you have these openings, and who is going to fill those jobs? What kind of job are you offering as an employer that's going to be attractive? And
the experience is going to matter too. Are you a fit for that job? It's not just, I want that job. Is, do you have what it takes to do that job?
Education, the role of education, and going back to our workers' education program, that is where people are learning English and getting those base requirements to be able to step into a decent job. How critical that is to have that background.
It's been a great show. For people who want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
The easiest way would probably be to go to our website, UMass Dartmouth Labor Education Center. And there you can learn about our many activities and opportunities, and you can reach me through there.
Kimberly Wilson, thank you very much for joining us. It was a great show today. I appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it very much.
And we could do this again, because I'm sure there's other issues that are going to be coming up, so we'll talk again.
Would love to. Sounds great.
That's going to do it for this edition of our conversation with. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.